All right, so today we're diving deep into some pretty heady philosophical stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The psychology of weakness.
Yeah.
As seen by the one and only Friedrich Nietzsche.
Mm-hmm.
And before anyone starts picturing, weightlifting or anything,
Right.
we're talking about a much deeper kind of weakness.
Yes.
The kind that really shapes how we think, act, how we relate to each other, even our morals.
Absolutely. It goes to the core of who we are.
So to kind of set the stage, what did Nietzsche actually consider weakness?
Well, he saw it as this almost like a trap, a pattern of behavior where, people avoid facing their limits head on.
Yeah.
So instead of acknowledging their limitations, they kind of build up these facades, these stories to protect their ego.
Oh, so it's like they're choosing to live in a fantasy world.
Precisely.
Rather than actually deal with the real world.
Exactly. And he argued that this avoidance, this running away from reality ultimately leads to a buildup of resentment and dishonesty.
So it's easier to blame others.
It is much easier than taking responsibility for our own our own shortcomings, our failings.
So this is where his idea of slave morality comes in.
Yes, exactly.
It's always been a tricky one for me to wrap my head around.
It's definitely one of his most controversial ideas. But essentially what he's saying is people who are kind of consumed by this sense of weakness, they often try to flip the script. They become envious of those who are strong and successful. And as a way of coping, they create moral systems that actually demonize those very traits.
So it's like if someone is successful, you just label them as arrogant.
Exactly. It's almost a way of devaluing what you yourself don't have. And Nietzsche saw this play out, in various ways throughout history. He pointed to Christianity, for example, where humility and suffering are often praised. Whereas pride and self-reliance are sometimes seen as negative.
Right.
So he saw this as a prime example of how weakness can really distort our values.
Wow, that's a really interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
So how does all of this tie back to dishonesty?
Right.
Is he saying that weak people are inherently dishonest?
No, it's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
What he believed was that dishonesty stems from this deep-seated fear of failure. The weak, in his view, are so terrified of failing that they'll create these elaborate justifications to avoid confronting it.
So instead of admitting that they messed up, they blame it on their tools, their coworkers, just bad luck.
Exactly. It's always someone or something else's fault.
Yeah, it's easier than owning up to it, right?
Much easier. And in the short term, it might seem like a protective measure, but Nietzsche argued that it's ultimately self-sabotaging.
Thinking about this in a workplace context, that kind of behavior it can be really destructive.
Oh, absolutely. It's corrosive on so many levels.
Yeah.
On an individual level, it prevents personal growth because if you're always deflecting responsibility, you never actually learn from your mistakes.
Right.
And then in relationships, it erodes trust.
Makes sense.
You can't really build genuine connections with someone who's constantly hiding behind this mask.
Like a poison, it spreads everywhere.
It does.
You mentioned the workplace, but could this kind of weakness also impact society as a whole?
Absolutely. Nietzsche believed that a society that's built on these foundations of weakness, dishonesty, blame-shifting, resentment, is ultimately a very fragile society.
Okay.
He almost envisioned a scenario where everyone is so busy covering up their mistakes and taking credit for the work of others that the whole system just starts to crumble.
That's a scary thought.
It is.
So we've talked a lot about weakness.
We have.
Maybe too much.
It can be a bit depressing, yeah.
What about the flip side? What did Nietzsche consider true strength to be?
This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
For Nietzsche, strength wasn't about physical dominance or brute force.
Okay.
It was about having the courage to be radically honest with yourself. It was about facing your limitations, not as a source of shame, but as a starting point for growth.
So it's about looking those uncomfortable truths about yourself straight in the eye.
Precisely.
No matter how hard it is.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly difficult, even painful at times.
Right.
But it's an absolutely essential step in the process of real growth.
So it's not about punishing yourself for your weaknesses.
No.
It's about using them as fuel.
Exactly, as a springboard for growth.
I like that.
Yeah.
So that means stepping outside of your comfort zone, taking on those challenges, and really learning from your mistakes.
Absolutely. And he saw, figures like Leonardo da Vinci as embodying this ideal.
Okay.
Da Vinci was this incredible force of creativity and innovation. He was constantly pushing boundaries, challenging the status quo.
So for Nietzsche, that's what strength looks like when it's put into action.
Precisely, that constant pursuit of self-improvement and creative expression.
And I'm wondering how this idea of strength connects to how Nietzsche thought about respect. Is it about power or something else?
He really believed that genuine respect flows from authentic strength. He saw it as almost a natural authority, a kind of magnetism that emanates from someone who is living in alignment with their values.
So it's not about demanding respect.
Not at all.
It's about earning it.
Exactly. Earning it through your actions and through the integrity of your character.
So it's not about trying to impress people.
No.
It's about just being yourself, even with your flaws.
Precisely. And think about, a figure like Mahatma Gandhi, a figure whose strength wasn't physical, but moral.
Yeah.
He lived his values so fiercely that it inspired millions around the world.
Right.
He didn't try to force people to respect him. He earned it through his unwavering commitment to his beliefs.
That's powerful.
It is.
This idea of strength that Nietzsche had, it seems to go against the grain.
Absolutely. He challenged a lot of those traditional ways of thinking about morality and human behavior. And one of the most, perhaps the most controversial aspect of his philosophy is his view on compassion.
What do you mean?
He actually saw it as a potential form of weakness.
Wait, compassion is weak.
Now, we have to be careful not to oversimplify his ideas here.
Okay.
He wasn't condemning compassion outright, but he was very wary of pity, the kind of compassion that creates a cycle of dependency.
Oh, so he's not saying we shouldn't care about others.
No.
It's more about how we show that we care.
Exactly. He believed that true compassion should empower others to overcome their challenges, not foster reliance on external help.
I see.
He worried that excessive pity could keep people stuck in a state of weakness.
Keep them from reaching their full potential.
Exactly.
So sometimes the kindest thing you can do is actually challenge someone.
Exactly. Push them to find that inner strength.
And this ties into his concept of self-affirmation, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And this is where we start to see his vision of a strong society.
Right.
So for Nietzsche, self-affirmation wasn't about being overly optimistic or ignoring the difficult things in life.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It was about saying yes to life and all its complexity, embracing the good and the bad, the joy and the struggle. It was about seeing challenges as opportunities for growth and transformation.
So it's about facing those tough times head on.
Yeah.
And using them to become stronger.
Precisely. And, he pointed to figures like Nelson Mandela as embodying this.
Okay.
Mandela endured years of imprisonment under a brutal regime.
Yeah.
Yet he emerged from that experience not filled with bitterness, but with this renewed commitment to fighting for justice and equality.
So he used that hardship to transform not only himself, but also the world around him.
Exactly.
It's a pretty powerful reminder that even in the face of really tough stuff, our spirit can not only persevere, but it can thrive.
Absolutely.
So how did Nietzsche envision this idea of individual strength actually building a strong society? What did that look like for him?
Well, he definitely wasn't advocating for a society that rewards conformity or mediocrity.
Okay.
He envisioned a society that celebrates individuality, that values honesty and authenticity above all else, and that encourages individuals to strive for excellence in their chosen pursuits.
So not about everyone being the same or reaching some predefined idea of success.
Exactly.
It's more about encouraging people to find and really develop their own unique talents and passions.
Precisely. He believed that a truly strong society embraces diversity of thought, fosters creative expression, and really empowers individuals to reach their full potential.
That's a fascinating perspective.
Yeah.
It really challenges a lot of the conventional ideas about what makes a strong society.
But it does.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from Nietzsche's definition of weakness to this vision of a more empowered way of being. So as we move forward, I want to explore how these ideas play out in the real world, in our everyday lives.
Absolutely. As we kind of dig deeper into these ideas,
it really strikes me how relevant they still feel. I mean, even today, with all the complexities of modern life.
It's like he had this ability to see through all that and get to the core of what it means to be human.
I think you're right.
The struggles, the hopes, the contradictions.
That's all.
And that's what makes his work so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not just some abstract philosophy.
Right.
It gives us real insights into the challenges we face.
Absolutely.
In our personal lives, in our relationships, at work, you name it.
It's everywhere you look.
Okay, so let's try to bridge that gap.
Okay.
Between theory and reality.
Yeah.
Where do we actually see this dynamic between weakness and strength playing out in the real world?
Well, think about that classic workplace scenario we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You've got that colleague who's constantly shirking responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
Always blaming others for their mistakes and somehow managing to take credit for successes that aren't even theirs.
Right. I mean, that's a textbook example of Nietzschean weakness.
That's not just annoying.
It's not.
It's really toxic.
It is. It really poisons the whole team dynamic.
It becomes everyone's problem.
Exactly.
And it can really stifle creativity.
Absolutely.
And innovation.
It holds everyone back.
Yeah. I mean,
from reaching their full potential.
So if we're looking for real-world examples of strength, who comes to mind? We're talking about Da Vinci, but who else?
Well, for me, someone like Martin Luther King Jr. really embodies that Nietzschean strength.
Okay.
I mean, here's a man who faced incredible opposition, personal risk, constant threats, but he never wavered in his commitment to his values.
Yeah.
And his vision for a more just world.
He had this incredible inner fortitude.
Yes.
His belief in himself and his mission.
He did.
And those are the qualities that Nietzsche saw as the hallmarks of true strength.
Exactly. It wasn't just about charisma or powerful speeches.
Right. It was deeper.
It was about something much deeper.
Yeah.
He didn't let fear or doubt cripple him. He took action, even when it was incredibly difficult and dangerous.
Yeah.
And he inspired countless others to do the same.
And that brings up a good point.
Yeah.
Nietzsche wasn't advocating for some kind of reckless, charge ahead no matter what kind of approach.
No, not at all.
Right. Strength is more about...
It's about calculated risks.
Yeah.
Knowing when to push and when to hold back.
Right.
True strength is never about blind courage or recklessness. It's about having the wisdom to assess a situation, be honest about your own limitations, and then to make those informed decisions guided by a clear head and a determined spirit.
It's about knowing the difference between courage and foolishness.
Exactly. Knowing when to push forward and when to strategically retreat.
Okay.
Always keeping that larger goal in mind.
So for Nietzsche, it seems like that ultimate goal was really all about self-overcoming.
I think so, yeah.
Constantly pushing yourself to become the best version of yourself.
That constant striving.
Almost like a hero's journey.
I love that analogy.
Right.
It's like this grand adventure full of challenges and opportunities for growth.
But the key to navigating that journey, to overcoming those obstacles, is cultivating that inner strength.
It is.
That will to overcome.
Absolutely.
It's interesting because I think we often talk about strength as this external thing, right? Muscles, achievements, social status.
Yeah, the outward appearance of strength.
But Nietzsche really turns that on its head.
He does.
He says it's all about inner fortitude.
It is.
About a kind of spiritual resilience that comes from really confronting reality.
Yes, it's about looking inward.
Yeah.
And building that strength from the ground up.
So if we connect this back to the bigger picture,
okay,
what can we do as individuals
to
actually cultivate this kind of strength in our own lives?
Right.
How do we take these philosophical ideas and make them actionable?
Well, I think the first step is embracing that radical honesty that Nietzsche was talking about.
Okay.
We have to be willing to look inward, to confront our own weaknesses, our fears, our insecurities.
Without flinching.
Without flinching.
Get real with ourselves.
Yes, no sugarcoating, no excuses.
And that can be a tough thing to do.
It can be incredibly uncomfortable, even painful at times.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely essential for growth.
So it's not about beating ourselves up for our weaknesses.
No.
It's more about using them as like a starting point.
Exactly. A springboard for growth.
Yeah.
And that means stepping outside our comfort zones.
Okay.
Taking on challenges that push us to our limits and learning from our mistakes, because we're all going to make them.
We are.
It's inevitable.
It's about having that growth mindset.
Yes.
Understanding that failure isn't a setback.
Right.
It's a chance to learn and get better.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And another crucial element is being mindful of the narratives we create.
What do you mean?
About ourselves and the world around us. You know, Nietzsche was really critical of what he called slave morality.
Yeah.
That tendency to kind of externalize blame, play the victim.
Right.
and devalue strength and power in others.
He saw that as a way of avoiding taking responsibility.
Exactly, and perpetuating weakness.
So we need to become aware of those patterns in our own thinking.
We do.
And challenge them.
Yes.
Am I making excuses for myself?
Right. Am I blaming others when I should be looking inward?
Am I letting fear hold me back?
Exactly.
Those are tough questions.
They are, but they're essential questions to ask if we really want to cultivate that Nietzschean strength.
Okay.
It's about taking ownership of our lives, moving from a place of reactivity to a place of empowered action.
And that action can take many forms.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's not always about grand gestures or heroic acts.
It's about those everyday choices.
It is.
That align with our values.
Exactly. It could be speaking up for yourself.
Okay.
Setting healthy boundaries in your relationships. Pursuing a passion project you've been putting off.
Right.
Or just making a commitment to personal growth and self-improvement.
So it's about making those consistent efforts.
It is.
Those small choices.
Yes.
That move us closer to being the people we want to be.
Absolutely. It's about aligning our actions with our values, even when it's hard.
It's about that will to overcome.
Yes.
That dedication to getting better.
Exactly.
That Nietzsche believed was the essence of true strength.
It is.
But how do we navigate those social pressures that often seem to reward weakness? You know, that pressure to conform, to play it safe.
That's a great question, and it's something that's really relevant in our world today.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. We're constantly bombarded with messages about how we should look, act, think. It's easy to fall into that trap of trying to fit in, to please others, to not stand out too much. And Nietzsche would argue that fear itself is a manifestation of weakness.
Interesting.
It's about letting the expectations of others dictate who you are and how you live your life.
So it's about sacrificing your own authenticity.
It is.
Just to fit in.
Just to fit in, to be accepted, to not make waves.
It's like dimming your light to make others feel more comfortable.
Exactly. And Nietzsche believed that true strength lies in embracing your individuality. In expressing your unique talents and perspective.
Okay.
And in refusing to conform to a mold that doesn't fit.
So it's about having the courage to be yourself.
Yes.
Even when it's not popular, even when it's hard.
Even when it means challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
It's about owning your strengths, acknowledging your weaknesses, and striving to become the best version of yourself.
Regardless of what anyone else thinks.
Exactly. Living authentically and unapologetically.
And there's real power in that.
There is.
When we stop trying to be who we think we should be.
Yes.
And we start embracing who we truly are.
It's liberating.
It's like this source of strength and resilience that we can't find anywhere else.
Absolutely. It's about finding that inner compass and letting it guide you, your actions, your choices, your relationships.
And it takes courage.
It does.
But it also brings a sense of freedom and fulfillment.
It does.
Cultivating this Nietzschean strength, it seems like it's more of a journey than a destination.
Absolutely. It's not about achieving some kind of perfect state of strength.
Right.
It's about that ongoing process of self-overcoming, of facing your fears, of becoming more authentic and empowered.
It can be challenging.
It can.
But also incredibly rewarding.
It is.
It's about tapping into that potential that we all have.
Yeah.
That capacity for growth and transformation that Nietzsche believed was at the heart of what it means to be human.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a real beauty in that. In knowing that we all have the capacity to embark on this journey, no matter our background,
our circumstance,
our current level of strength.
It's about taking that first step
Yes.
and then the next.
And the next.
And always striving to become
a little bit stronger, a little bit more authentic.
A little bit more ourselves.
Exactly.
And as we're on this journey, it's important to remember that we're not alone.
We're not.
We're surrounded by others who are also going through this.
We are. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
All struggling, all striving.
And that sense of shared struggle can be really powerful.
It can.
It can be a source of support and encouragement.
Absolutely.
Knowing that we're part of something bigger.
Yes.
That our individual journeys are all interconnected.
They are.
We have the power to lift each other up.
We do.
We've talked a lot about the internal aspects of strength. But I'm curious about how this translates into our outward actions.
Okay.
You know, how we interact with the world. It seems like Nietzsche was also concerned with how this individual strength, or lack thereof, could impact the very fabric of society.
He was.
It's funny, right? We often think about strength in terms of outward appearances.
Yeah.
Physical strength, achievements, your place in society.
Right, all those external markers.
But Nietzsche really challenges us to think differently about that.
Oh, he totally flips the script.
Yeah.
For him, real strength isn't about, putting on a show. It's about developing this resilience on the inside.
Okay.
This unshakable sense of self that comes from confronting reality.
Right.
And refusing to let, fear or resentment control you.
It's about building strength from within.
Exactly, from the ground up.
And it makes me think about how often we try to project this image of strength, even when we might not feel so strong inside.
Oh, all the time.
Like social media is a perfect example of that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the ultimate highlight reel. Everyone's showing off these perfect lives, these accomplishments, these picture-perfect moments.
What we don't see is the struggle.
Right, the vulnerability.
The messy parts.
The behind-the-scenes reality.
Yeah, and I wonder if this pressure to always appear strong, if that actually makes us weaker.
I think it can. It's like we're so focused on looking strong that we forget to actually do the work of becoming strong.
So how do we break free from that? How do we move from seeking validation from the outside to cultivating real strength on the inner?
I think it starts with being honest with ourselves about why we do the things we do.
Okay.
Why are we posting that picture? Is it for self-expression?
Yeah.
Or is it for the likes and the comments?
Are we chasing that promotion because it actually aligns with what we value?
Right, or just because we want to impress other people.
It's about understanding our motivations.
It is, yeah.
Taking a hard look at the why behind our actions. And then having the courage to say no to the things that don't serve us.
Yes. Even if that means disappointing people.
Even if it means going against the grain.
Sometimes you have to.
Putting our own well-being first.
Absolutely.
And staying true to our values.
Even when it's hard.
So it's not about trying to fit into someone else's idea of what strength should be.
Yeah.
It's about defining strength for ourselves.
Yes.
And then having the courage to actually live it.
Exactly.
And that's going to look different for everyone, right?
It will.
For some people, strength might mean speaking out against injustice.
Absolutely.
For others, it might be prioritizing their mental health.
Yes, setting boundaries.
Putting themselves first.
Yes.
And for some, it might be about pursuing that creative passion they've been putting off.
That thing they've always wanted to do.
Yeah, it's about honoring our own path.
Exactly.
And being okay with standing out.
And that's where I think true strength lies, in that unwavering commitment to being authentically ourselves. Even when it's hard.
Even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, when you tap into that inner source of truth and you live by your values.
Yeah.
That's where you find that unshakable resilience and fulfillment.
It can't be touched by outside pressures or opinions.
No, it comes from within.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We have.
My mind is spinning with all these new insights.
Me too.
If I had to sum up Nietzsche's message in one sentence,
okay,
what would it be?
Embrace reality, cultivate inner strength, and create a life worthy of your potential.
I love that.
It's a good one.
And as we wrap up here, I want to leave you with a thought from Nietzsche himself.
Okay.
He said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." So I ask you, what is your why?
What gives your life meaning?
What gives you purpose?
Yeah, and how can you use that purpose?
To cultivate your own unique strength.
Right.
And contribute to creating a world that reflects your values.
Such a powerful idea.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it as insightful and empowering as we did.